You know, sometimes God asks us to do things that don't make any sense. And that's exactly what happened to a man named Abraham about 4,000 years ago. Abraham wasn't always called Abraham. His name was Abram back then, and he was living a pretty comfortable life in a place called Ur. It was a big, bustling city with nice houses, markets, and everything you'd need. Abram was 75 years old, settled down with his wife Sarai, and probably thinking his life was all mapped out. But God had other plans. One day, God spoke to Abram. Now, imagine this. You're in your 70s, you've got your routine, your friends, your familiar streets. And suddenly, you hear, leave your country, your people, and your father's household. Go to the land I will show you. Wait, what? Go where exactly? God didn't even give him a GPS location. Just, the land I will show you. Abram must have felt his heart racing. Fear, excitement, confusion all mixed together. Maybe he lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, did I really hear that? Am I losing my mind? His wife Sarai probably noticed he was being quiet. What's wrong? She might have asked. And when he told her, imagine her face. You want to leave everything we know. And go where? But here's what's amazing. God made Abram some incredible promises. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. A great nation from a man who didn't even have children yet. It seemed impossible, but something in Abram's heart stirred. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was faith, or maybe he was just tired of playing it safe. So Abram packed up. Can you imagine the goodbye parties, the confused looks from neighbors? You're going where? Why? And Abram having to say, I don't exactly know where, but God told me to go. People must have thought he was crazy. He took Sarai, his nephew Lot, all their possessions, and all the people who worked for them. It was like a massive caravan heading out into the unknown. Every step away from Ur must have felt heavy. Abram probably looked back more than once, wondering if he was making a huge mistake. The journey was long and hard. Dusty roads, uncertain water sources, sleeping under the stars. Sarai, who had known comfort and stability, now lived in tents. Can you imagine the arguments they might have had? The moments when she looked at him with tears in her eyes, wondering if this was all worth it. But Abram kept going. Finally, they reached Canaan. God appeared to Abram again and said, to your offspring, I will give this land. Abram built an altar there. It was his way of saying, God, I'm trusting you. Even though I don't see how this is all going to work out, I'm trusting you. But here's where it gets really hard. Years passed. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and still no child. Imagine Abram and Sarai lying in their tent at night, the silence between them heavy with unspoken pain. Every month, Sarai hoped. Every month, disappointment. She was getting older, way past the normal age for having babies. Abram would look up at the stars and remember God's promise. A great nation, God had said. But how? He didn't even have one son. The doubt must have been crushing sometimes. You know that feeling when you believe in something so much, but the evidence just isn't there. When everyone around you thinks you're foolish. That was Abram's life. Sarai felt it even worse. In their culture, a woman's value was often tied to having children. She felt broken, inadequate, like she was letting Abram down. One day, she came to him with a desperate plan. Look, she said, her voice shaking. God hasn't given me children. Sleep with my servant Hagar. Maybe I can build a family through her. It wasn't what God intended, but Abram agreed. He was tired of waiting, tired of the uncertainty. Maybe this was the way. Hagar got pregnant, and suddenly, everything got complicated. Hagar started looking down on Sarai. Sarai became bitter and jealous. The tent that was supposed to be filled with joy became filled with tension and pain. When Hagar's son Ishmael was born, There was happiness, sure, but also a nagging feeling in Abram's heart. Is this really what God meant? 13 more years went by. Abram was now 99 years old. 99, think about that. Most people at 99 are thinking about legacy, about the end. But God showed up again. This time, God did something powerful. He changed Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of many nations. And he changed Sarai's name to Sarah, meaning princess. Can you imagine how Abraham felt? God was giving them new identities before the promise had even come true. It's like God was saying, I'm so sure about this that I'm calling you who you're going to be, not who you are right now. God made a covenant, a sacred, unbreakable promise. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you. Abraham fell face down. Maybe he was laughing. Maybe he was crying. Maybe both. At 99 years old, with a 90-year-old wife, he was going to have a son. Part of him must have thought, this is impossible. But another part of him, the part that had been holding on to faith for 24 years, whispered, but with God, nothing is impossible. God told Abraham that within a year, Sarah would have a son. They were to name him Isaac, which means he laughs. When Sarah overheard this, she laughed. Not a joyful laugh, a bitter, skeptical laugh. After I am worn out, and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? She thought. God heard her laugh and asked Abraham, is anything too hard for the Lord? That question hung in the air. Is anything too hard for the Lord? And then, just as God promised, at exactly the right time, Sarah became pregnant. Can you imagine her face when she realized it? The shock, the disbelief, the overwhelming joy. After decades of pain and waiting, after she had given up hope, life was growing inside her. When Isaac was born, Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. But this time, it wasn't bitter laughter. It was the laughter of joy, of vindication, of a promise kept. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. 100. He held his tiny son in his weathered hands and probably wept. All those years of waiting, all those moments of doubt, they all made sense now. But the hardest part of Abraham's story was still to come. Isaac grew up. He was probably a teenager, maybe a young man. He was everything to Abraham, not just his son, but the fulfillment of God's promise, the hope of future generations. Then God spoke to Abraham again. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering. Can you imagine the shock that went through Abraham's body? His blood must have run cold. Sacrifice Isaac, the son he had waited 100 years for, the son God had promised? Nothing could have prepared Abraham for this moment. This wasn't just about losing his son, though that alone would have destroyed him. This was about losing everything God had promised. How could Isaac have descendants if he was dead? Abraham must have spent that night in agony. Maybe he walked alone, under those same stars God had shown him decades earlier. You said you would make me a father of nations. You gave me Isaac. And now, this? Did Sarah know? The text doesn't say. Maybe Abraham couldn't bring himself to tell her. The thought of seeing her face, seeing her pain, it might have been too much. Early the next morning, because when God asks you to do the impossible, you don't sleep anyway. Abraham got up. He chopped wood for the burnt offering. Each strike of the axe must have felt like his heart breaking. He took Isaac and 2 servants and started the 3-day journey to Moriah. 3 days. Imagine those 3 days. Every step taking him closer to losing his son. Every night, lying down with Isaac nearby, watching him breathe, memorizing his face. Isaac trusted his father completely. Dad, we have the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for the offering? Abraham's voice must have caught in his throat. God himself will provide the lamb, my son. Did he believe that? Or was he just trying to protect Isaac from the terrible truth? We don't know. But Abraham kept walking. They reached the place. Abraham built the altar, carefully placing each stone. His hands were probably shaking. He arranged the wood, each movement mechanical, his mind screaming, "No, no, no," but his faith whispering, "Trust God." Then he did the unthinkable. He bound Isaac and laid him on the altar. What went through Isaac's mind? Fear, confusion. Did he struggle, or did he trust his father even in this? The Bible doesn't tell us, but the silence is deafening. Abraham picked up the knife. Tears were probably streaming down his face. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to stop, but he had learned over a lifetime that God could be trusted, even when it made no sense. He raised the knife. "Abraham, Abraham," the angel of the Lord called out, "do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, his whole body shaking with relief and emotion. There, caught in a thicket, was a ram. God had provided, just as Abraham had said. He untied Isaac, probably held him tight, both of them crying. Then he sacrificed the ram instead. He named that place, "The Lord Will Provide." God spoke to Abraham one more time. "Because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed." All nations on earth. That includes you. That includes me, because thousands of years later, through Abraham's family line, Jesus came, the ultimate sacrifice, the ram in the thicket, the son who actually was sacrificed so we could be saved. Abraham's story teaches us something powerful. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's not about the journey making sense. It's about trusting God even when you can't see the path ahead. Abraham left his home not knowing where he was going. He believed for a son for 25 years before Isaac was born, and he was willing to give up that son, trusting that somehow, some way, God would keep his promises. And you know what? God did. From Abraham came a great nation, actually, many nations. Kings came from his line. And through his family, the Messiah came to bless the whole world. Whatever you're waiting for, whatever impossible promise you're holding on to, whatever God is asking you to trust him with, remember Abraham. Remember that God is faithful. Remember that he keeps his promises. And remember, with God, nothing is impossible.